All right. Everybody still with us?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to start off and talk a little about Miss Lou in the context of some of my writing and research. So I have a book and it is called The Embodiment of Disobedience, Fat Black Women's Unruly Political Bodies. And I'm going to reference some of that research as I talk about a little about Miss Lou. So, in contemporary Western world, slenderness has come to represent the equivalent of good health. This equating of slenderness and fitness and longevity is especially apparent in the US, where fatness has been named an obesity epidemic, a title that pathologizes the fat body as an epicenter of disease and deterioration. Given that only a century or so ago, you had actresses like Lillian Russell who were perceived as very voluptuous and desirable, a question that emerges is how is it that now, having a body that borders on a state of emaciation, now dominates Western aesthetics in terms of the ideal embodiment. So in the Western world and in many post-colonial cultures such as Jamaica's, slenderness as well as whiteness, and Delia spoke a little about this, are highly privileged physical commodities, and this aesthetic marginalization of fat black women's bodies is interestingly often quite in contrast to the iconography of fat black women in popular culture. So think about Miss Lou's immense accomplishments and influence as a Jamaican cultural icon. She was a poet, a comedian, an actress, and a political activist. In a literary context, she legitimated the Jamaican working class experience through the subject matter of her writing, as well as her advocacy for the use of Jamaican patois. Her influence was profound, as I'm sure we'll all agree, right? And her popularity was tremendous. Similarly, consider the extraordinary success of contemporary performer Lizzo. How many people know Lizzo? Some? Yes. Whose brand is now astronomically successful, though, and maybe because, her body is an ongoing source of public contention. Both Miss Lou and Lizzo's fame are in such contrast to the standard banishment of women with body like theirs from the Western beauty arena. The late Jamaican journalist Maurice Cargill's depiction of the full-bodied Jamaican higgler is an example of this marginalization to which I refer. So in many articles written in the 1980s for the Jamaican newspaper The Gleaner, the late Maurice Cargill offered a controversial portrayal of the Jamaican higgler, specifically locating her fat body as a source of deviance. So this is a part of what Cargill writes in one of his columns. Quote, "Considering that so many Jamaican girls are slim and pretty, one is bound to wonder whether higglers are the result of some sort of selective breeding." He continues to say, quote, "Few higglers seem to weigh less than 250 pounds. They are also a special shape, sticking out back and front simultaneously. Huge protruding bottoms and equally huge tops, both of which they use as battering rams. Run up against a higgler, or worse, have one run up against you, and you soon know there is no soft, flabby fat there, but solid muscle, and no dancers quicker on her feet. How do they get that shape and size, and from quite an early age too?" End of quote. So Cargill persists in the colonial tradition of defeminizing her body, the black woman's body, based on its blackness, and pathologizing it based on race, on size. So I would argue that in contemporary African diaspora, the fat black woman's body occupies a largely resistive and transgressive space that responds to its historical devaluation. In some instances, full-figured Black women construct personas that are highly sexualized. Examples would include figures like Carly the dancehall queen. Anybody remembers Carly? Yeah. Carly the dancehall queen, who was popular on the Jamaican music scene in the 1990s. And contemporary Jamaican media personality, Miss Kitty the Fluffy Diva, who has lost a good bit of weight, but who has historically framed her curvy body as highly sexual and desirable. Though the performances of women like Carleen, Miss Kitty, and Lizzo are sometimes characterized as vulgar and seen as offensive to the religiously underscored Western behavioral norms of Jamaican society, I would suggest that this sexual unruliness is iconoclastic and a form of chosen sexual impropriety and resistance to historically racist beauty hierarchies. However, fat Black women in the performative space engage in acts of transgression unrelated to sexual impropriety. Women like American rapper Queen Latifah, South African singer Miriam Makeba, and of course, Jamaican folklorist, poet, actress, and performance artist Miss Lou resist marginalization by becoming political advocates for their respective cultures and by directly engaging social concerns via their performances. Of all private and public figures in Jamaica, Ms. Lou has probably made the most outstanding efforts towards legitimizing the country's patois while addressing pressing social and political concerns. Poems like Nolika Twan, American, and Colonization in Reverse offer comedic yet profound commentary on globalization and migration. Dirty Tough addresses with oppressive economic circumstances faced by many working-class Jamaicans. But perhaps Ms. Lou's most transgressive political stance might be described as her liberating Jamaican patois from being held captive by the English language. So I'm going to just close by saying that essentially I'm suggesting that it's interesting to take note of the way how culturally certain types of bodies are not acknowledged in the same way in the beauty arena, but how these bodies and women with these bodies have come to use their public personas in ways to advocate and to inform in many of the ways like what Dede was talking about. And I would suggest that Ms. Lou is one of these. Thank you.
Greetings. I want to thank you all for coming here today, despite the inclement weather, to celebrate the life of Miss Lou. I'd also like to thank the organizers for inviting me to share the stage with some of these remarkable writers and women and performers who have done so much to make this event a success. The title of my presentation is Miss Lou, a Poet of Freedom. And in this mini lecture, real mini lecture, I'm going to show how Miss Lou, whom I consider to be a national hero, liberated us not only through her work, but through her presence as an agent of change and freedom. We are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free the mind. By now, many of us have become familiar with these words of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey from a speech he gave in 1927, and which were made famous by the Honorable Robert Nesta Marley in Redemption Song. In both these instances, these Jamaicans heroes confronted the single most pressing issues facing post-emancipation and post-independence Jamaica. British colonialism and its effects on the minds of the formerly enslaved colonies. It is to this great task of liberation that the Honorable Louise Bennett-Coverley, or Miss Lou, as we've come to know her, dedicated her life, and in doing so, she freed not only herself, but also her children, many of whom are gathered in this room. This is what Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley, and Miss Lou were rebelling against. Now, if you've ever stopped to think about how is it that the British could control such vast territories without always having to resort to military might. And it's something that those who have studied war have done over and over again. The British started, or I should say, the Britons, started in Scotland and in Ireland, and they outlawed the Gaelic. So there were many writers, many people who spoke Gaelic in Scotland, in Ireland, that the Britons came out and said, no more of that. So Jamaica is not the only place that they practice. They also practice it in India and anywhere the sun would shine. What they did was, following the patterns of the Romans and the Greeks and all these other empires, the first thing they did was they killed all the artists and the intellectuals within it. In fact, they gave a name to it. It's called the tall poppy syndrome. So, in here, if they came in here now to conquer us, they would say, who are the leaders? And Mayor would put up his hand, and they would say, kill him first. So they would kill all the leaders. The second step in their colonial was to outlaw the language and to institute their standards as the norm. So, how do they do this? By shame. Right? By shame. This is how you control a people. You say the only people who wear white shirt, good looking. Right? So everybody wants to wear white shirt. Right? So once you institute the English language as the standard, right? Everybody wants to follow that. Now, I want to make a difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is over something that you do. Shame is what you are, who you are. So, shame poisons the soul. Right? You're living always in a state of shame. So we grow with things like nothing black, no good. Right? Do you realize how poisonous that is to your soul? And that is what we live with. So Miss Lou liberated us from that. Right? Miss Lou said to us, talk your talk. Do whatever you want to do. Right? Let me get back here. I'm going to wrap this up. Oh, and I had a quote here by Stephen Biko, who said, the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And that was what? You see, once they got inside our minds, it's done. Right? So Miss Lou was always fighting against that. A lot of us may not know this, but Miss Lou actually had her first performances in Edelweiss Park which was a center set up by Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey first had Miss Lou saying her poems. So Miss Lou was part of that whole generation of freedom fighters. And Marcus Garvey brought her under his wings. So in the same way that Garvey was about her freedom, Miss Lou was also about her freedom. Okay, so whether it was in her use of patois, her performances in ringling, as she said, so the people then can learn something will belong to them, or the creation of characters such as Auntie Rochi, who is the voice of tradition, and Miles Charlie, a seeming sympathizer for the British Empire and linguistic respectability. That's another thing that taunts us. The respectability idea, right? When Miss Lou started doing her poems, the first time, and you can imagine she's still nervous. She's not Miss Lou as we know her now, right? And she goes and she gives her poem, and somebody in the audience said, "And that your mother said you school for?" So, whether it was Miss Lou championed the language we first learned from our mothers, which is as familiar as our breaths. But what is speech but encoded breath? And breath is what keeps us alive. In fact, in the book of Genesis, the Holy Spirit is referred to as the breath of God, Ruach Elohim, hovering over the waters. And the earth was without form, and wind and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Ruach Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. Patois, then, as Bob Marley has said about reggae, is a godly thing. And we should never feel ashamed about this gift. Miss Lou's poetry cultivated this feeling of respect for ourselves, for how we walk, we talk, and how we live. That we are enough to be ourselves, and we do not have to cower under the shadow of the British Empire, nor do we have to measure up to standards of respectability that are alien to us. We set our own rules. We set we're right and we're wrong. And when we do right, we must do as Miss Lou said. Clap on yourself.
Thank you so much. This has been so rich. Either these topics could have been an event in itself. A wealth of information. So right now, having these three here,